Hello and welcome to Called Bank Sports. The Jazz got absolutely throttled tonight by the Suns, which I don't think anyone was expecting anything different. Obviously, the last game was really close, went to overtime, and the Jazz got outpaced by the Suns there. But this time around, when you're missing two of your three All-Stars, can't really expect to win if you're the Jazz. If the Suns were missing Chris Paul and Devin Booker, I would have given the Jazz the W tonight, no questions asked. So there was part of me that was hopeful that the Jazz could come out and have an offensive game like they did against Sacramento. But the Suns have one of the best defenses in the NBA compared to Sacramento's league worst defense. So obviously nothing good was going to come of it. And really overall, I can look at the stats, but again, while I don't want to make excuses for the Jazz, and they have definitely won games where they're missing key pieces, again, they were missing 2 of 5 starters, and I can't think of any games this year where they've won missing 2 of 5 starters. They won a couple games without Donovan Mitchell earlier in the year when he was in concussion protocol. They've won games without Mike. The only other game I can think of, other than these last couple games where they've been missing Mike and Donovan, where they didn't have 2 starters, was their second game against the Lakers in LA, and that game got lost in overtime. So yeah, when the Jazz are playing good teams without 2 All-Stars, they're not going to be able to be successful. And we definitely saw that tonight. So they do need to get healthy, and they need to make sure that Donovan is at least 90+% when he comes back, if not 100%. And that Mike Conley, again, is in the same realm. We can't risk, the Jazz should not risk injuring any of their key contributors leading into the playoffs. I would rather have the 2 seed or the 3 seed and be 100% healthy going into the playoffs than have the 1 seed, as much as it would stink to lose the 1 seed, which is kind of seeming a bit inevitable right now. But according to 538, they're predicting the Jazz to finish 52-20, and they're predicting the Suns to finish 51-21. So they're still giving the Jazz the benefit of the doubt here, but they've been dropping pretty consistently. The Jazz have been on that record-wise since Donovan went out, and I really don't want to talk about it more than I have to, but the Minnesota games really just were the cause of that. If the Jazz win the Minnesota games right now, then you're looking at a prediction of them finishing 54-20 and the Suns finishing 51-21. And while, yes, the Jazz still have to play well, they're not in nearly as big of a bind as they are right now. Where I do think the Suns definitely have a harder schedule down the stretch. But again, the Jazz don't have 2 of their All-Stars. And missing All-Stars is a really big deal, especially when they're as big of contributors as Donovan and Mike are. And even worse, when you're running an 8 or 9-man rotation, you now have to plug in 2 spots. And do you have 2 players to replace them on the back end? Since, yeah, we can bring Yang and Ingles in on the starting lineup and still struggle a lot, but have a pretty good starting lineup. But then it's the backups where, Favors is still struggling defensively, and he really needs to find himself there. And you don't have Joe Ingles to help him out, and you don't have Niang to help him out. So you're just pretty much putting Derek Favors in positions that he was already struggling to succeed in, and now he's not going to succeed pretty much at all without having the strong bench unit he's had around him for most of this season. Looking at the team stats, just pretty much sums up why the Jazz lost tonight, and it's pretty much just the field goal percentage. The Suns shot 54.5% compared to the Jazz 43.8%. And the Jazz didn't struggle too bad from 3, but I do think they got lucky towards the end and boosted their percentage. They shot just under 36%. So a bad night, but not under 30% like they were shooting towards the beginning of the game. Jazz had a good night from the line, which is about the only thing you can say. They lost the rebounding battle by 8, and it wasn't because of offensive boards. It was just because of a lack of being able to snag as many defensive rebounds. When the Suns aren't missing, you're not going to be able to rebound the ball. So, and that's what happened to Utah tonight. Assists, nothing. Suns had more. Steals, Jazz got 8, so that's a $1 classic roast beef sandwich tomorrow. Not sponsored, but I'll probably go get that and enjoy the only thing I can from this win. And the points in paint really kind of stunk. Jazz only had 34 compared to the Suns' 54. Gobert obviously isn't known for being an offensive center, but he does struggle against Ayton. So if the Jazz end up playing the Suns in the playoffs, it's going to be rough. Ayton has really grown into his own, and no one will ever redraft him at number 1 to the Suns because you're going to draft Luka Doncic there for time and all eternity if you do a redraft of that year. But yeah, he's definitely bringing a lot of good, positive vibes to the Suns organization, and he's going to be helpful for a long time. So overall, we definitely do need to see improvement from Rudy Gobert, and it's hard. He definitely has a lot more weight on his shoulders on defense and on offense when you don't have Donovan and when you don't have Mike. But that being successful in these situations is what would help him be able to get his name into the MVP conversation. I know we've discussed that that's going to be really hard to happen if it ever happens, just because he's a defensive player, and MVPs always have some level of offensive game where they're able to put their team on their back and help them down the stretch in an offensive manner. And Gobert's never going to be that guy, but he would need to improve significantly on the offensive end to ever be in discussion for it, just because of the dynamics of the award. I do think he definitely deserves to be in conversation for it. I think he deserves to be more in conversation for it more than Steph Curry. Even, and this one I know is kind of controversial, even more than Joel Embiid. I just don't feel like Embiid has played enough to be able to put his name into that ring. So overall, Jazz leading scorer was Bogdanović with 22. He was 2 for 6 from 3 and 4 for 5 from the field. From inside the arc. He's definitely improved a lot and is able to do pretty well from inside the arc. And he's getting a lot more free throws from attacking the basket like that. And so the thing is, if you look at this, he shot 33% from 3. So kind of at that spot where I'd consider it in kind of where you want to see him shooting, since if he makes one more, then he's at 50% from 3, which isn't something you can expect from him for the season. So he's right in that spot where he's pretty much doing what you expect. So, excuse me, let me grab a drink of water. Okay, sorry about that. So he's obviously seeing a lot of success because he's not having to share the ball with Mike and Donovan. I'm hoping that the success from these last couple of games translate. And if he's able to, in the next couple of weeks, get up to consistently shooting 35, 36% from 3 and being able to be successful without having the ball go through his hands as much, that if Donovan and Conley being hurt bring Bogdanović back, even if it involves us falling to the 3 seed, I think it's worth it. 3 seed's kind of a push, but definitely if it involves us falling to the 2 seed, then I think that's all right. Looking at what would happen if the Jazz fell to the 2 seed right now, 538 is predicting that the Jazz will play the Grizzlies. Good team, but obviously not nearly as competitive. If the Jazz fall to the 2, 538 is putting the Jazz playing the Blazers. And that would be a rough game. I'm not going to lie. I would definitely prefer to see the Grizzlies in that matchup. And because of the playing games, even if it ends up with Blazers 7, Grizzlies 8, the Jazz could get lucky and the Grizzlies could beat the Blazers. So that's kind of what the playing game does that is super weird, is it makes it to where finishing 1 or 2, you don't control who you play in the first round. Those teams do. And I've said it before, I'm super excited to see how this play-in tournament goes. So it'll be intriguing to see. I do think it looks like, and let's say that the Suns end up finishing above the Jazz, getting the 1 seed. I do think the Jazz will still probably have the second best record in the NBA. Now, things could go even worse than I actually think they will, and the Jazz could end up with a third or fourth. But if the Jazz end up with the second seed and the second best record in the NBA, they could possibly guarantee themselves home court advantage for the entire playoffs, because the Suns might very well play the Lakers in the second round and lose there, and then the Jazz would be the best record in the NBA remaining. So let me know what you guys think in the live chat. If you want to keep going, I'll be more than happy to stay as long as the chat is going. But that pretty much wraps up my thoughts on these games. It's hard to take anything concrete from them because of the fact that you're missing 2 of your 5 starters, 2 of your 3 all-stars, but got some good experience hopefully for some guys on the bench, and we'll see how the Jazz do tomorrow against Toronto. You do notice how all of the starters played less than 30 minutes, and Niang and Gobert only played 24. Clarkson, Ingles, and O'Neal ended up playing the most minutes of any Jazz guys, tied at 29. So they'll hopefully be rested tomorrow, and as rested as you can be. And the Raptors was a hard matchup for them last year, but we'll see how this goes. So thank you guys so much for coming. Really appreciate all the support. If you could leave a like so that other people can find this video, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed, that would be awesome. Thanks again, and go Jazz. And I can't forget to say, actually, join us tomorrow morning. Watch for our video to drop about noon, 1-ish, for just kind of Dale and my thoughts on where the Jazz are at overall. So have a great night, guys.